What are your thoughts on the CDC vaccine committee recommending against flu vaccines and other vaccines having thimerosal?
Don't ask any questions because you are anti-science or anti-vax if you dare to question the orthodoxy, the religion of quote-unquote science.
Do you have any thoughts on feeling jolts of electric shock throughout your body at certain times?
Well, it's neurogenic pain. I mean, it's a neuroinflammatory issue that needs to be addressed. So
the people want to know, can you give an update? Because I know that you had a conversation with somebody, the medical medium.
Okay, so this video went kind of viral. Like a day after this episode aired, I get a text and she said, Anthony wants to talk to you. What's up and welcome to the Art of Being Well, giving away free healthy stuff. You know, on the Ask Me Anything episodes, which welcome, you are listening to the latest Ask Me Anything episode, we give away some stuff for all the listeners of the Art of Being Well. So we're giving away free signed books. You can pick which one of the 4 that I wrote. So Ketotarian, the Inflammation Spectrum, Intuitive Fasting, and Gut Feelings. You can pick one of those, and you can pick a free supplement protocol stack that we have at drwillcole.com. We have hormone, gut health, brain health, hair, skin, nail protocols. So anyway, check them out there on drwillcole.com. And we're also giving away free functional medicine telehealth consults with the team here and I. So you can pick which one you want if you win. So for a chance to win, head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review The Art of Being Well there. Tell us what you love about the show. You can leave your Instagram handle in the Apple Podcast review itself or take a screenshot of that review and message me on Instagram at Dr. Will Cole. And the team will go through the messages on Instagram as well as look at all the Apple Podcast reviews themselves and pick winners from both places. Randomly pick winners, reach out to you, and you can tell us what you want if you win. Good luck. To help me out every Ask Me Anything episode, we have 2 integral parts of the Functional Medicine Telehealth Clinic.
Oh, I heard it.
Like cornerstones.
Foundational.
Keystone. Like if we were the microbiome, you would be the keystone colonies.
Wow.
Your Akkermansia, your
Why does she get to be
lactobacillus,
Akkermansia? Oh, okay,
or some
I'll take lactobacillus.
Clostridia,
Okay,
probably. Yeah.
Bifidobacterium.
Yeah, infantalis, something like this. So no, but seriously, they're functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners, Emily and Andrea. What's up?
Hey guys.
Hello.
How are you?
Feeling great.
How was your morning so far?
It's been awesome. It's actually been quiet. Don't you feel like?
No.
No?
Maybe
For me, it's been quiet. You know?
2 different mornings.
You win some, you lose some.
Same morning, 2 different experiences. Yeah. So let's jump right into the questions. So let me just say this while they're pulling the questions up. You can submit your burning health questions. You can ask about latest health trend you saw on social media, or a research paper that you saw in the scientific literature, or maybe your own health issue that you're looking for a functional medicine perspective on. So all you have to do is email your question to hello@drwillcole.com. That's right?
Yes,
Hello.
you are correct.
Yes.
hello@drwillcole.com, and we add it to this living Google Doc, and we get to as many of your health questions in these Ask Me Anything episodes. So if you like this sort of eclectic, diverse conversation that we're having, go back and listen to previous Ask Me Anything episodes. It runs the gamut as far as the topics that we hit.
Yes.
They're interesting questions for sure.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. Who has the first
Jump right
one?
in. All right. Question 1. Dr. Cole, what are some of your favorite stress and trauma tools or even therapies that you would recommend in your clinic?
Okay, so this is, we used to have a series on the Art of Being Well called Mental Health is Physical Health.
Yes.
Where we had one of our lead emotional wellness coaches, mental health experts at the clinic, Candace, who's still on the team.
Yeah. Yes.
So we ran that for a while, really around my book, Gut Feelings. So we explored both the gut and the feelings. So you can go back and listen to those episodes if you want, but they were kind of like Ask Me Anything, but they were like clinical deep dives of dealing with both the physiological, i.e. the gut, and the feelings, the mental, emotional, spiritual facets, which is a sort of key perspective that we bring into our telehealth patient protocols, because having this sort of both and, not either or approach is how you see the needle move for some people. And it's like a pie chart, right? A Venn diagram where some people, there's going to be more mental, emotional, spiritual aspects to their health. And then for some people, it's going to be both physical. A lot of people, it's a mix of both, and you have to deal with both, at least at some point in your health journey, to avoid plateaus. So that's where the question is coming from. And I've written a lot about the science of these sort of practices, these mind-body practices, if you will, over the past 15 years. There's lots of free resources at drwillcole.com with all the links to PubMed where you can kind of look at the research. So I'd be curious to get everybody's like own like preference, but the reality is like our preference is, well, let me say this. I guess we would have preferences based on clinical experience and what we've seen be the most effective for people. Fair enough. Right. But maybe for our own personal life, we maybe have a different one that we like.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe it's the same. Some ones that I go back to regularly as far as recommendation, and we prescribe these to our telehealth patients just as much as we would prescribe a biohacking protocol or a peptide protocol or a food protocol. Yes. Breath work is a significant tool. I typically will say on telehealth visits to pick something active and pick something passive. So that way it's not so overwhelming. Right? Because there's so many exciting science-backed things that people can do to support vagal tone, and which is the largest cranial nerve in our body. And a lot of our telehealth patients and a lot of people in Western society as a whole, at least to some degree, have what researchers call poor vagal tone, a weak vagus nerve. If you have that largest cranial nerve in the body, it's responsible for that resting, digesting aspect, that parasympathetic aspect of the autonomic nervous system. So if you have a weak nerve, just like you had a weak muscle, what would you have to do? You'd have to train that. You'd have to tone that, something that's weak, to sort of recalibrate, because the sympathetic tone, that fight or flight, freeze or fawn, the sympathetic aspect is overactive and the parasympathetic is weak and underactive. So it's very much nervous system training. To have nervous system regulation, you need to train your nervous system, that the part of the nervous system that is weak. So things like breath work is a toning of a weak vagus nerve in part. So it could be as simple as box breathing, which is equal breathing through your nose. Inhale through a count of 4. Let's just say that 3 to 5, and then hold for that same amount of time. Hold your breath, and then exhaling and creating sort of a proverbial box. And that's been shown to really shift your state. It's a state change for the nervous system. It starts to really do a lot to regulate and calm that neuroimmunoendocrine axis, so that intersection between the nervous system, the immune system, i.e. inflammation, and the endocrine system, your hormones. So breath work, and then there's more advanced breath work, like holotropic breath work, that typically there's going to be more training and facilitating during visits that we would teach you on that. And then everything in between. Another thing that I like is journaling. Journaling is a great tool to kind of somatically clear out things that are stored in the body. And we suck at it, right? All of these practices, let me just say, though we all as a society largely, maybe some of you are just amazing, but for the rest of us peons, we suck at these parasympathetic tools because a lot of us are used to being numbed and distracted and this sort of hyper-vigilant, go American way. That's why it's called a practice, is because it's training something that is weak. So it's like me going to the gym one time and saying, well, I'm not good at the gym. Well, no, the person that ever's worked out before, it's working out is going to be uncomfortable and clunky, and you're going to be sore the next day. And you could say, well, working out's not for me. The gym's not for me. But that's not the case. It's that we're training something that is weak, and you're starting something new that you're not good at. Right. So there's a lot of like physiological and psychological reasons why we suck at acts of stillness. And it has to do with the nervous system. It has to do with starting something new. So journaling is a great way that's going to be, especially in our day and age where we're used to typing and sitting on the phone and it's all digitized. But what are we going to physically be writing out with a pen and paper? And we have different journal prompts that we would ask people to utilize with their daily practice. What does it feel like to be me today? And it may I am in pain. I'm uncomfortable. I'm having these symptoms. I'm going through this problem. To be consistent with that, it's metabolizing stored stress and trauma in the body. And your hands are going to cramp and it's going to be unnatural. But you show up and you do the work on a consistent basis. So journaling can be, and there's different ways. There's like many different journaling methods that we can utilize, but journal speak is one of them, or what they call, ugly journaling.
Right.
Would be another way. Meditation, you have to go back to that. Finding an end to anything. And look, journaling can be a meditative practice. Breath work certainly can be a meditative practice. Meditation is really anything in a way. Meditation is anything that anchors you in the present moment. And so you're not worrying about the future or regretting the past. You are centered and grounded in the present moment. That is training for a weak vagus nerve.
Yep.
So those are those are all active things that you have to integrate and be consistent with. And you have to show up like you would to the gym.
Yeah.
You can't do it once and say, well, it doesn't work for me. It would be like going to that gym one time and saying, the gym didn't work for me. You have to be consistent.
Yep.
But something passive is something that you don't necessarily have to think about or do or show up for. You can just have in the background and get some benefit to. And we like different vagal toning devices.
Yeah.
The researcher, which I need to connect with them. I mean, I know they're friends with the clinic, and you maybe have met with them, but the Apollo Neuro team, they're right here in our city. It's the University of Pittsburgh Psychiatry Department. A researcher kind of was a part of developing the Apollo Neuro device. And there's different ones. There's Sensate, there's...
Hapsy, I think. There's like a couple different ones you can
the
wear.
Happy device, yeah.
Yeah, Happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you say that? Happy?
Yeah.
There is even the... Why am I forgetting the name? It's just, forgive me.
Is it the brain tapping?
Brain tapping.
Brain tapping,
Yes.
yeah. So there's different ones that are all working in different ways, but they're all geared towards either stimulating the vagus nerve through frequency or vibration, and or other modalities to be supportive of the parasympathetic. So we'll prescribe those sort of wearables, if you will, that are. But those are some of my initials. But
I'm surprised you didn't mention the Amortal, because it has a component of that as well.
I love the Amortal. I just don't see it as like a daily practice. Like unless somebody has $500,000 or whatever it costs. Like, I love it. I don't have it. Please, if you want to gift it to me, I would love it. But yes, those like sort of higher end devices when you have the chance and access to do it, certainly. But we're not prescribing that on a daily basis.
No, and we have the courses too, right? Like a Primal Trust or DNRS, right?
Right. So explain
dynamic neural retraining system.
Yeah. So we'll integrate these sort of platforms with our telehealth care to do alongside our telehealth care. And it's like a class. We recommend a sort of class training in addition to functional medicine that is nervous system training. Yeah,
I would be curious, like, because I know you mentioned this too, if you guys had to choose one out of preference, like what would you
I would
typically
say breath work, because it's something you can do here and now. You don't need anything else. I would say some sort of breathing exercise.
Yeah.
Not that I'm good at it, but I feel like it's like the most accessible.
I'm not good at it either, but it absolutely makes a difference.
Well, it's free.
Right.
It's free.
Exactly.
I mean, you can go, you can even YouTube.
Yeah.
Different breath exercises, or even just sitting outside and slowing your breath. You don't have to do the counting. You don't have to do those things. But there's like simplistic ways. I even tell patients, do you get a shower? You can do it in the shower. Because the people who say they don't have time, there's time. You sit at red lights. You probably pick up your phone to text, but you could do some deep breathing.
Yeah.
You are getting ready in the morning. You are getting a shower. There is space in your day. It's not like you were saying, it's an exercise. You don't want to just be reactive. You want to be proactive. You don't want to wait just for times of stress to implement these. You want to do them so that you have that memory recall, that muscle recall, so that your body can get out of that stress state quicker if you practice this regularly.
And I think, sometimes we really need to challenge our thought process and the way we make decisions too, because we hear that often. Oh, I don't have time for that. And don't get me wrong, we're all doing life. We're doing things that take up a lot of time. I totally get that. But I also think that everything that we choose to do is hard. Yeah. Everything we do. And we just have to choose our hard at some point, right? It's hard to do it. It's also hard not to do it. And
it's hard to feel dysregulated.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. And so I think that we, and we do have these challenging conversations with patients.
Yeah.
Just as, and listen, we also practice what we preach, right? We have them with each other too, often. But we have to choose our heart. And so sometimes I think we have to have that kind of deeper conversation of, what are you really afraid of here? Or what are you really wanting to accomplish here? There's a lot of different questions that can come up in that, but I think that's great.
When you feel more regulated and more grounded, you have more bandwidth and more resilience.
Capacity, yes.
So that's the thing 100%. Too, is like, I get that. When you're dysregulated and you feel like you're at your breaking point and you feel like you have nothing more to give, we understand that. So on adding one more thing to your plate that again seems kind of maybe different or weird or you're not good at or uncomfortable,
right?
It seems like, oh my gosh, this is adding to my stress. We don't want that. But but there's going to be an uncomfortable like friction for a minute. There's got to
be a little
for
movement
a season.
there,
But when you have more resilience, you will be able, like what stresses you out today isn't going to stress you out necessarily. And so a lot of these things aren't going to be stressful once you have more to give to the world and you have more capacity to show up as the best version of yourself.
Right. I think we always like to talk about that resiliency term and like it's sunshine and rainbows. And it is when you get to that point, right? Like it does, you still like, oh, look how far I've come. That's awesome. But we have to walk through a lot of pain and hardship sometimes to get there too, or uncomfortableness, not always pain, right? But just might be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's just conversations that we actually do have with our patients sometimes, which is helpful. But I do think because I know a lot of times when we're starting out with patients, because they get to that point where they feel like they can't add anything else. I tend to lean with the Apollo device first, the Apollo Neuro device.
Because it's less overwhelming.
It's less overwhelming. It's passive. I have one. I personally love it. So again, it's using the small vibration frequencies. You wear it on your wrist. You can wear it on your ankle. I, kind of feel like it's an ankle bracelet when I do it that way, but, it just needs to be touching skin constantly, right? So they say the best place to start out is with the wrist. You can also take the little, device though off of the band and wear it like on clothing as long as it's touching your skin. So you could do it that way too, if you want it more hidden. But I think that that's really helpful for someone who feels like they just don't have the capacity to add one more thing right now.
Yeah.
And we can see a lot of improvement if they're doing it consistently. You have to try it for at least, I tell patients, you need to do this for 4 weeks before you even give me an opinion, judgment, whatever. Try it for 4 weeks every day. And you're probably not going to need it for the rest of your life that often. There will be highs and lows, but you will see a difference. And we do. We see a huge difference when we do. So that would be my preference, because I know a lot of people when we're starting out, it can be harder for them to feel like they could add like the journaling 20 minutes a day in, or the breath work, which I agree with you, Andrea. We can do it.
This is where me and you differ. I am harder on our patients. I am in that way, because I do think, just like we would tell someone, sorry, Pizza Hut isn't serving you. Not to call out Pizza Hut, but it's not serving you. But we would have no problem telling them that. Why do we have no problem saying, okay, I want you to show me the timestamps on your phone. Show me. I've done this with my kids. I've done this with my youth students. I've done this with friends. Don't tell me you don't have time, because if I see you spend an hour and a half on YouTube, you had 20 minutes.
Say this. Andrea is very popular with the telehealth patients because people need tough love.
Yes.
People need to be called out on the crap. And she doesn't have a problem with doing that.
And so, she does not.
It's all in love, because again, I don't need perfect, and every patient should know that if they're here, and they know this. And you're right. Some of you guys are listening. I call you out by name, but I don't want to embarrass you that way. I've literally worked with them for 10 plus years. Like I've worked with these people. It is never ever to shame. It is not. But you have to take ownership, or nothing's going to change. And that does not mean we enter into this with perfection mindset, because if you enter into something thinking you need to be perfect, you're going to get failure. And no one wants to feel like a failure. All we are asking is that you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to start valuing where you put your time. And if you do not value where you put your time, you will end up in the same cycle of dysfunction that you are in, that you want out of.
Right.
So there has to be some of that ownership that happens and takes place. So yes, I like the Apollo Neuro.
Yeah.
But you also have to confront things.
You have to. And I think that's why I think the conversation is so important, because usually it's the I don't have time is the safe, like, surface answer. There's usually something deeper to that, right?
Yeah.
That we are,
I don't want to make time.
I don't want to make
Yes.
time, right? And why, right? Like, what's getting in the way of that? So
And we see this a lot with moms who are there, especially like every mom has a hard job, but you take someone who works, then goes home, has to parent. They're like, that's my 30 minutes. And I'm like, I get it. You want to watch a Friends episode. However, you're not there yet where you have the flexibility to fill your time with things that aren't working you toward your bigger goal of feeling better. Just like I would not justify you going and getting Dairy Queen, I'm not going to justify you watching Friends over your mental health. At some point in time, there has to be ownership. And I am a walking billboard for wanting to practice what I preach. I'm not perfect at it. I fail a lot. However, I take ownership and I say, okay, what can I do better?
I'm just saying, Friends really helps my mental health, actually.
gosh.
I laugh
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. If you were friends, what would you be? What friend would you be? What's your friend like avatar?
Ooh,
I'm Monica.
you're definitely Monica.
I'm Monica.
I don't know who
In
I
the
would
best
be.
way. In the best way.
I know. I'm Monica. It's okay.
Yeah.
I would say you're Rachel.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Who am I? Chandler?
No.
No, you're
Jelly?
not
Ross.
Chandler.
You're Ross. You're
Okay.
Ross.
That's who I thought.
You're
I
Ross.
wanted
Because
to
he's
see.
like the paleontologist.
Yeah,
like
you're
he's
definitely
like,
Ross.
Yeah,
definitely.
like
Ross was probably an Enneagram 5.
probably, actually.
Yeah.
And Monica's definitely Enneagram 1.
100%.
And Rachel may be Enneagram 8.
I think she could be.
I'd like to know this. I know that there's a
7, 8.
lot of theoretical.
We should look that up.
Everything has an Enneagram online, and there's probably not.
Yeah.
They're fictional characters, guys. We have to remind ourselves they are fictional characters, but they only exist in the writer's mind. But yeah, that is interesting. One other passive device or passive technology therapy that I want to mention that I use personally is Soak. I had the founders
yes,
of Soak
yes.
on the podcast, SOAAK. Go back and listen to the episode. Wild technology. And they blend frequency medicine, and you can have just a frequency with certain hertz that have been shown to support the parasympathetic. And then they also you can layer in the frequency with nature sounds or music like guitar.
Right. There's a lot of great research around that, too.
Yeah.
I love
you,
it.
You guys laugh a lot. Will come in my office and he'll be like, "What's that noise?" And
yeah.
it's me listening to some random Hertz YouTube
Binaural
video.
beats.
Binaural
Yeah.
beats.
Which is another one. Maybe you could mention that because
Yeah.
you do use it.
I do. So there are different Hertz lengths, and we've actually written articles on this. So if you want to go read about it, you can go to our website, drwilcole.com, to read about it. But those different Hertz wavelengths can help with focus, or they can help with calming. And so I just go to YouTube, look for a very specific wavelength. And most of the time for me, it's calming more than focus. I don't have a problem with focus. It's the energy surrounding the focus that I need to work on. And so this is my passive. I will put on that in the background. You can't hear it from outside my room, but the second you walk into my office, it almost feels like you're in a spa. It's like, like in the background. And that to me is a very big
Yeah.
help. I recognize, because we play music at the office, I'll walk out into the hall and I'll feel my anxiety go up just because it's a stimulant to me. Whereas if I go back into my office and I'm listening to these Hertz wavelengths, again, it's passive. As long as I'm not on a patient call or a meeting where you can hear that in the background, it is something you can do all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
So-
Yeah.
Good.
So those are some tips. And
I'd
something
be
else.
remiss not to mention the Nerva app, though.
Okay, yeah, you've used that
Because I've
too.
also had
Recommended that and used it,
Huge
yeah.
benefits from
Yeah.
Nerva app. Nerva app is almost more like hypnosis but it uses meditative practices. And I'm not the best sitter and breather, like where I can just always do that very well. So I like the guided component of it and the hypnosis part of it. And I find it incredibly relaxing. And our patients have seen especially those with gastrointestinal issues, vast improvements
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. And then, of course, Shinrin-yoku, which we've talked about in the podcast a lot, like that should be mentioned here. If you're like wanting to know our master list, like using nature as a
Yeah.
meditation and nature as a medicine, and you could use breath work and Shinrin-yoku. You could use, grounding and
Right.
meditation
Yeah.
and Shinrin-yoku. So it's like a sort of parasympathetic stack, if you will. I think getting out in nature and taking in nature with all of your senses is massively therapeutic because the phytostenoids, like basically the essential oil compounds within the plants and the trees and the soil, actually modulates your immune system of biochemistry. Breathing in the biome of the forest will shift your microbiome and crosstalk between the sort of gut-brain axis, the microbiome-mind axis. So, like, if you could take any things that we talked about and did it within nature, and not necessarily not a hike, but I'm saying just like sitting in nature, grounding, or slow, intentional, meditative movement within nature, will enhance all of the things we just talked about.
I notice that a lot when I'm in my garden. That like I notice my breathing slows naturally.
Yep.
And that when I'm there, just the smell of the earth, the smell of what I'm dealing with is incredibly calming. So I do think even if you want to get a little planter for your back, like if you are someone that lives in a major city
Start
and
a
you
garden,
only have a little balcony, get a pot, grow some things, pick some dirt, like be one with nature as much as you can be. I agree.
Yeah.
The studies that show even pictures of nature has an effect.
Yeah, I was going to say like computer backgrounds.
Yeah. And you like changing it with the season.
Yeah, that's one of my things. I think it's fun helps me signal a new start. So
We even like to do it with like our team emails and stuff. We always like to choose like a nature background.
we do,
and
do
we're
that.
seasonal people.
And sometimes we do have differences of opinions about what color it should be. But
We love it, though. It's so much
find-
fun. We
it
each
is
take
fun.
turns.
It's
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
cute. It's fun, or especially if one of us changes it and doesn't tell the other ones, and we sign in. I love it.
That would be me.
That would be you.
So you have lots of tips: passive, active,
Yeah, that's great.
parasympathetic tools. Have at it. And that's the other thing. You don't have to do all those things. Like pick
Yeah.
one passive, one active, and be consistent with it.
Love it.
All right.
All right, guys. Next question. Question number 2. Do you have any thoughts on feeling jolts of electric, she put it in quotes, electric shock throughout your body at certain times? One time, middle of the night, I felt it consistently in my knees and feet. And about 6 months later, I felt the same type of shock feeling in my armpit 2 nights in a row. Always in the middle of the night, but only 3 nightly experiences with this. I do believe it's related to stress from my brief Googling. I love when people throw that in there. But not getting a clear idea. So she mentioned stress, which is important. This is a great duality to this question. So hopefully they take some of our stress advice. But what are your thoughts on the jolting experience? Again, feet and knees, and then the second time she experienced it was her armpit.
Yeah. Well, it's neurogenic pain. I mean, it's a neuroinflammatory issue that needs to be addressed. So, quantifying what nerves are impacted. Is this a systemic neuroinflammatory problem, or is there localized nerve impingement? And kind of from a health history differential diagnosis standpoint, and labs, and if appropriate, imaging studies or nerve testing needs to be evaluated to kind of look at the sort of scope of what's going on here. So the nature of this question is going to have limitations because I don't have all of that data. But certainly we have to explore from a diagnostic standpoint what is driving that inflammation. And in our realm, like we're not dealing with so much musculoskeletal like nerve impingement. That would be more of a chiropractor's office or a physical therapist or some sort of nerve specialist, right? So I won't answer it in that vein. But what I will answer is more of a functional medicine approach and the type of patients that we see. And we see a lot of autoimmune patients, and we have to look at variables that can cause flare-ups, and neuroinflammatory neurogenic inflammation is very common with a certain like categories of autoimmune patients. And we want to look at environmental toxins, like man-made environmental toxins like herbicides, pesticides, heavy metals, forever chemicals, PFAS. Those have to be assessed because people that have autoimmunity have an increased likelihood of having different detox impairments or SNPs variants that make their body not as good at detoxing, or HLA variants where their body doesn't know how to calm down after it's been triggered, whether from stress or trauma or an environmental toxin. And then we have to look at biotoxins like mold, bacteria, viruses, which we know can trigger neurogenic pain too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of epigenetic environmental stressors that need to be assessed. And that would be, I would say, at the top of my list
Right.
of assess, then address. You don't want to go and addressing things that aren't there, but we want to look and assess what's irritating the immune system. Like what's the state of the immune system irritation? And that's running inflammation tests. And then what's irritating the immune system in the first place, which
Right.
would be the sort of upstream core tests that we would add based on your health history.
Yeah.
Right. I would say, again, the same thing, right? Like it might be stress, and that could, practicing some of these tools we just mentioned could really possibly help and calm things down. But where is this starting? What's at the root of that? And I think that's what we're really wanting to investigate, right? And, we go back to stress and the way that it impacts the nervous system in the body. But we also know through research that environmental toxins actually dysregulate the nervous system in the same exact way too. So we have to do a little bit more investigation here. And it's not an uncommon response that we've seen before, but we need to see where this is really coming from.
Yeah, I mean, my clinical mind starts going up. Can you please become a patient? Because I do want to fully explore
Yes.
this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I immediately think about where this is. We're talking armpits, we're talking feet, we're talking knees. So are we thinking lymphatic? Is there viral? Is it Lyme related? Is there
Yeah.
something that's impacting the body's ability
Right,
to clear
right.
appropriately? So what you guys are saying is true. I mean, we're looking at the root cause of what's happening. But for me, my mind starts going. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's a solution for this, and it's a sign.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is something's going on. We
Right.
should look into this.
Yeah, these are, like Andrea said, like this proverbial check engine light. Well, check engine light's on, but what? But to Andrea's point, even before we run labs, like looking, I'm sure you'd want to see like that Horowitz questionnaire. Like,
100%.
Yes.
I literally
Yeah.
am sitting here, and because she's talking about stress, so I'd want to see her ACE score. I'd want to ask her what's her daily stress level at. What is she doing to manage her mental and emotional health? Like, I have so many questions for you.
Yes, and this is why a consult is so helpful. I know that
like an hour and a half of like digging into this
and
stuff.
we ask a lot of questions on our consult. I mean, we do go
Yeah.
into many different areas, but this is a great reason to do that, right?
Because like a Horowitz looks at Lyme and tick-borne problems or
Well,
biotoxins that mimic Lyme, like
yeah, chronic infection patterns.
viruses and mold as well. And the ACE is adverse childhood experiences. That's looking at sexual trauma, physical abuse growing up,
Emotional, verbal abuse.
neglect
yeah.
growing up. Yeah.
Jinx.
You owe me a soda.
Is that
Do
what it
people
was?
still say that?
No, they say Jinx blackout. This is my kids, okay? They say
Okay.
Jinx
Is
blackout,
this-
and then
oh,
you
this
can't
is
talk
new?
until I say your name.
Who
So-
teaches the new edition of these?
I don't know, but it's like Jinx blackout every day in my house.
They do this.
Yes, back and forth.
I actually
James
kind of like this
Blackout.
more than the soda because I
Yeah,
don't even
but
drink soda.
Where did that start?
We'll have to look that up.
Anyways,
I need to know.
We'll
but-
report back on the next AMA, guys, where that came from.
Like people were handing out soda because they said things at the same time.
I don't know.
Yeah, so weird. But anyways, you
Yeah.
have to keep talking. So Will.
Blackout. Anyway, yeah, great.
No,
hopefully that's helpful. These
Yeah.
are,
I
I would
know
say, our
it's not-
perspective.
Yeah.
I know this isn't an answer because we don't have labs in health history and
Yeah.
questionnaires and all of the context and nuance of your bio-individuality. But if we
Yeah.
had that, then we could really give
Right.
you answers
But those
and
are
tools
things
to
they
address
can
it.
start just
Looking into.
Right.
exploring that on
Educate
their
yourself
own,
on.
like what and the stress component of it. There's some
Right.
intuitive. I know it wasn't a relatively long question, but
Mm-hmm.
there's some intuitive emotional awareness here where she's recognizing that stress is a component.
Right.
She's recognizing that these are not
Normal things, yeah.
And so for me, I feel like they're starting that journey, and don't ignore it just because it only happened a couple of times. That could be your
Right.
pre-warning sign before things take a turn,
Yeah.
and it's not that it's not fixable, just might require more work.
Right.
Yeah.
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 All right, next question. Dr. Cole, I recently saw a new study on weight loss that showed a low-fat vegan diet lost more weight than a Mediterranean diet. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so they didn't reference it in the question, but there was, and I looked up the latest sort of all the latest vegan and Mediterranean, and there's only one that fits the criteria that
Yeah.
you're talking about. So it was published in Frontiers in Nutrition just this summer. It was conducted by the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, which I'll talk about that organization a bit later. They looked at 62 participants. It was a randomized crossover trial where they, for each For 16 weeks, I'll break it down for you guys.
Okay.
16 weeks, they did a low-fat vegan diet, and then they had a 5-week, I believe, washout period. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was a 4-week washout period where they kind of reset. And then they did another 16 weeks of a Mediterranean diet, which they brought in fish and olive oil, and they compared a few different things.
With the same person.
62 people, yeah.
Okay.
And it was randomized. So some people started with a vegan, and some people started with a Mediterranean, and then switched.
So they flip-flopped it.
Because I thought about that too. I was like, well.
So
The initial versus the long term,
Right.
yeah. But no, they were randomized. So participants lost an average of 13 pounds in the low-fat vegan diet, primarily from reduced body fat and visceral fat, while this is shocking, which is why it's hit the headlines, no significant weight change was observed in the Mediterranean diet. So another thing that they quantified was dietary acid load, or DAL. The vegan diet significantly reduced dietary acid load, which I'll kind of give you my hot take on that in a minute. It was measured by potential renal acid load, PRAL, and they also measured net endogenous acid production, two different basically kidney scores to measure urinary acid content, basically, right? So they both reduced it by about 25. Both biomarkers, let me say this better. Both biomarkers were reduced by 25 to 27 points. And the Mediterranean diet saw no significant decrease in dietary acid production. And they measured advanced glycation end products, which is sort of oxidative stress inflammation marker. Again, the vegan diet reduced that significantly, which I thought was interesting compared to the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean didn't see any significant done. So there was, on the metrics that they used, the one advantage that the Mediterranean diet had was blood pressure. Blood pressure significantly saw a decrease with the Mediterranean, not so much with the low-fat vegan. Limitations of the study: 62 people.
Right.
Limitations: 16 weeks each. It was self-reported data.
Right.
And there could be variability. They just had to follow a specific guidelines. It wasn't like it wasn't like full randomized control trial where you only ate those food and you were fed these specific foods.
Okay.
It was just guidelines. My take on this is that I would be interested in looking at the caloric intake of the vegan diet, because we know there's really good data around fasting mimicking diets. And Dr. Walter Longo out of, I think, USC or UCLA. He's in California. He's out of the premier leader and researcher in fasting mimicking diets. And they are lower calorie vegan diets. Now, they do have healthy fats in there. They have olives and nuts and seeds. And it's not low fat, but it's lower calorie, moderate to higher fat. I would describe the way that his research is out. So if you kind of use Walter Longo's work with this, I'd be interested to see what was the caloric intake. They don't really specify that, at least to my knowledge, that I have seen in any of the sort of published data on how much the caloric intake was. And what was the sort of macronutrient ratio of the Mediterranean diet. But I think there's something to be said for short-term variability, short-term diversification of foods can have a sort of a initial effect. And I could see lowering protein and lowering dietary fats temporarily kind of shifts the body into this sort of fasting mimicking state. Because you're not really stimulating gluconeogenesis very much, because protein's going to be lower, and you are going to be in this sort of fasted mimicking state, I guess, to repeat myself, that you could see in the short term that low-fat vegan diet is going to have some initial chutzpah as far as like the gains that you would see as far as fat loss, which is interesting. Like, they don't say that. I'd be curious to see how much muscle loss was there, even though it wasn't primarily. Well, I like seeing the fat reduction and visceral fat. Wonderful. But was there also protein muscle loss that gave it an extra edge of advantage. That would be my one other thought there. And the dietary acid amount, let's talk about that. The dietary acid load, the DAL, that is urinary acid production, which is always used, it's oftentimes used by plant-based vegan advocates because they equate that with systemic acidity. So there's acid-forming foods, which would be meat, dairy, like non-plant-based foods, basically. Acid-forming foods. And then there's base-forming foods, which would be all the plant-based foods, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. So that's sort of this sort of, in my opinion, an oversimplified view of like acid-forming equals bad, base-forming foods, plant-based foods equals good. And they'll use data, and there's like associations with chronic disease and acidity in the body systemically, and they sort of extrapolate data mainly around kidney disease, like chronic kidney disease and other chronic diseases that had higher dietary acid load, and then they extrapolate that DAL as like a primary marker to assess if somebody's healthy or not in every population. And I think, as we say oftentimes say, just because causation doesn't necessarily correlation doesn't necessarily equate with causation.
Yeah.
And it's certainly correlated, but the body highly controls, highly regulates blood pH. So things like chronic diseases like cancer, yes, it's in an acidic state, slightly shifted towards acidity, but it's a response, a reaction to, or a result of the cancer, not because of acid-forming foods, which will shift dietary or urinary acidity, but it's not, in my opinion, gonna shift blood pH or blood acidity. And I think we need to be clear on that. And that a food is more complex than just its acid forming or base forming capabilities. We have to look at macronutrients. We have to look at micronutrients, i.e. we have to look at nutrient density. But to be so reductive and say it's just down to acid forming food or base forming food, I think is just oversimplifying a clinical nutrition.
Right. Yeah. I think, again, I would agree with all of that, and just saying I would love to see this in a longer studying each of these longer period and looking at way more markers, right? And, just even studying the inflammation aspect, the macronutrients, all of that, to see what changes overall they really are seeing there. So
we've seen many short-term vegan interventions be great.
Right. Yeah.
So we are not, none of us are vegans, and nor do we recommend that long term for people.
Right.
But to say that there's not something there is absolutely something there.
Yeah.
Even if you go back to like beyond like all the clinical interventions we've seen, but remember like the Daniel fast? It was like a book.
People at my church still do it.
Yeah, it's very big amongst Christian groups. Yeah. People see amazing results in the short term. And that's a completely vegan protocol. Right. It is basically what they're saying here,
right?
More or less. There is great shifts that people can see. The medical medium would be another one, where it's like short term, it's going to be pretty much, for the most part, look more or less like this. And people see amazing results. So we're not saying in the short term, eating whole foods you're going to see a positive shift. And I would say there's probably some macronutrient advantages from a fat loss standpoint. When you're saying like no, in the short term, no protein, no fat, can have like a shift to the body to like lose weight rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think, Andrea?
It's so hard for me because the clinical aspect of it, of the long-term nature of it, when you have a study like this and then people...
But what do you think the short-term effects?
Short term, I think can be exactly what you said. What were they eating before they started this? Like what were they... I don't feel like I have enough data to like fully have an opinion on it.
The question that I have for that is like, okay, if they all started with a vegan diet first, then I would agree. But like, it's interesting that it's because it's randomized.
But that's what I'm saying though. What if someone was eating more Mediterranean style before they started it and it wasn't as much
Like
of
it's
a
more
shock.
the adjustment.
Right.
Exactly.
True.
It's more
True.
that shock that you're mentioning. It's
Yeah.
more that immediate,
Like a temporary protein sparing protocol.
Exactly.
Right.
What if it was they were like more paleo and shifting the Mediterranean wasn't a huge shift for them,
Yeah.
but going vegan would be. So again, I hear what you're
There's
saying, and I do
there's
think
like
that
a vegan honeymoon period.
Yes.
That we have to
Yes.
acknowledge.
and we actually have
Yeah.
patients that will
It's
say
true.
that. They're like,
It's
oh,
true.
I went vegan and I felt so good for 3 months and then I crashed. And it's like, well, that's because the honeymoon
Yeah.
phase was over and now your body
It's
was
And
almost
that's why I
searching.
said longer. I think we need to see longer because I'd just be interested in seeing what inflammation looks like over time, what they're feeling like over time, what our energy levels like, all of that, right?
Yeah, and it's something to speak about is this sort of honeymoon vegan period, and like would
Yeah.
there be advantageous? Like if I had to extrapolate this data, it's like would it be beneficial for people to do blocks of 16 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever of these sort of vegan things where you're modulating their immune system? I agree, huge, significant pitfalls long term.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we've had episode upon episode and article upon article about the macronutrient and the micronutrient problematic nature of a strict
Yeah.
low-fat vegan diet. I am not advocating that. But is there a pulsed cyclical
Well, I think
approach to this?
Sure.
Yes, I think that if you look at certain aspects of someone's case and if they have the gut that can handle those higher amounts of plant foods and it makes sense, absolutely, just like we would use carnivore and never say someone should just do strictly that for the rest of their
Yeah.
life either. I think that it's too myopic to say something doesn't work at all, but then just the education around it is, I think, really important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And saying like, hey, we like this short term. We like the idea. Here's the principles behind it. It's not going to fix all your woes.
Well, and Walter Longo's advice is just to do it 4 days out of the month.
There you go.
But I mean,
Wow.
that's all he recommends, right?
Yeah.
We've all done that.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
4 days? Something like that?
I thought it was
3 to
5.
5 days?
Yeah, 3 to 5. We'll
5
go
days.
there. We'll go
I
there.
don't know. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while. But yeah, we've
Yeah.
experimented with just about everything out there. And
Yeah.
and remember that other like Ayurvedic or protocol? What was
yes.
it? I don't want to give it by name, maybe not, but it was
Okay.
a lot of.
Yeah.
The one that me and you did that
Yeah,
was
that was 7 days.
Yeah, that one was intense.
That was rough.
And that was full plant foods.
And that was full
not
plant
good for
foods.
my gut towards the end. Again,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the first few days, totally fine. Towards the end,
That was hard.
it was a little rougher.
Yeah.
But again, I don't regret doing it. So there's
And we've had people
Yeah.
swear by certain things, and then it doesn't work for the next person.
Yeah.
Bio individuality.
Right.
100%.
Guys, we should do one. Let's do
Want to
something.
do one and then report back?
Yeah.
We should do people would love this.
My
Like
That would be so
experimenting with one thing and then report back on the differences.
Yeah, we love that. All right.
So maybe submit what you want us all to try, and we'll do our own N
no,
of one
please.
experiment.
Are we-
Yes, we're so on it. I
We're making
love
ourselves
this.
that okay.
Like the master class from the early 2000s. No,
I've
thank
done
you.
I have done everything we've ever asked a patient to do.
It's
so.
true.
Dr. Cole, question number 4. With the MAHA movement, I feel like I'm seeing things in the news every day, and I feel like I'm constantly being bombarded with new information I didn't know I needed to know. What are your thoughts on the CDC vaccine committee recommending against flu vaccines and other vaccines having thimerosal? I thought they removed thimerosal years ago. Hasn't this been debunked?
Okay, so thimerosal is a mercury additive, derivative, preservative that's used within vaccines. The person who asked this question is absolutely correct that it was largely removed in the late 90s, like from 1999 to 2001, it largely removed from vaccines as a precautionary move. Not that there was robust data that the vaccine manufacturers thought, yes, this was for sure bad. They just did it for, I think, consumer pushback, and they wanted to increase consumer confidence. So they found ways and innovated vaccines without thimerosal as a preservative. It's still in the multi-dose at this point, at the time of recording, it's still in the multi-dose flu vaccine. So the HHS, Health and Human Services, under the direction of Secretary Kennedy, has an advisory committee for immunization practices, or the ACIP committee, which is a handful of people that are on the committee, which also hit kind of news because he got a new ACIP board with more diverse opinions on it, because Secretary Kennedy was concerned about the conflict of interest of the financial ties of many people. I think there was about 16 people or so on the ACIP committee at the time when he came into HHS that had significant financial ties to the pharmaceutical industry. So he just wanted to sort of clean house, refresh it. Some were very much like, let's say, independent with their thinking around vaccines. What the world, some people that are skeptics, we call them vaccine skeptics. I don't think that's fair to say, knowing some of these people's backgrounds. I think they're just open-minded with the fact that maybe let's look at the nuance and context of stuff and advise accordingly. And I'll explain why I think so in a moment. And then there's people that are more traditionally minded, and I think that was his goal, at least, is to get a diverse group of opinions, not people that were beholden to an industry. That's my take on that. And they are, as a board, recommended for us not to use the multi-dose flu vaccines, but to use the single-dose flu vaccine without thimerosal. I don't think that that's controversial at all. The skeptics, the people that really are contrarian to everything the HHS does, says, well, it's debunked science, and why are we even? You're only increasing vaccine hesitancy, so why are you rehashing old stuff? It's removed from everything basically, other than the multi-dose flu vaccine. I think that having a precautionary approach is a good thing. When you have something that does have data to show, even in small amounts, this can be problematic for some people, not everybody. Thimerosal is a neurotoxin. Thimerosal has been shown to increase inflammation. Thimerosal in animal studies has been shown to increase mercury toxicity. Yes, does there need to be more studies? Does the dose and the context and nuance matter? Certainly. But while more science is done, if we have better alternatives today as far as preservatives are concerned, why can't we go to those?
Right.
It's similar to not similar, but in a way, one's public health, one's food, but it's similar to the artificial food dyes, where it's like, yes, it's not the best analogy, forgive me. One is actually an active preservative agent. One is just for marketing purposes. But it's similar, the precautionary principle is the same between both, where it's like, okay, even if you don't have the best science around, if we have alternatives, can't we swap?
Yeah, why
Just,
wouldn't we?
And swapping will improve. I should say it this way: swapping for better ingredients and transparency will improve people going to vaccine. It will decrease vaccine hesitancy, and that's, I think, the goal of HHS is having transparent data, having people make the decision for themselves. It's an individualized decision, and finding better options when they're out there. So that to say the HHS is like anti-vaccine, in that same meeting, the advisory committee for immunization policy they recommended the RSV vaccine for kids because there was data to show that it could be beneficial and parents could have that choice for the vaccine. And they also maintained the previous committee's advice for flu vaccine season. As flu season's coming around, they kept the immunization schedule the same. They changed nothing. And similarly, the mRNA, I think it was Moderna's mRNA vaccine, they recommended this new mRNA vaccine for high-risk kids. And yes, they took the COVID vaccine off of the schedule for pregnant women and healthy kids because the data showed healthy kids don't need this.
Right.
Pregnant women can make the choice for themselves. So this is really about having pro-choice and agency over your health versus banning vaccines or increasing hesitancy. Like the cliche always says, like sunlight is the best disinfectant. Having transparency and informed consent is good for everybody because you can make the decision between the patient and the doctor what's right on an individual basis. So if you're high risk, maybe you're going to pick something different than a healthy person's going to pick, right? And for all of these different options for people, this is a good thing. This is truly informed like science to look at the nuance and context of populations and not making blanket statements and saying, well, this is all good for everyone. Don't ask any questions because you are anti-science or anti-vax if you dare to question the orthodoxy, the religion of quote unquote science, which is not really science. It's just believe what we're saying and trust the experts. That's not science. What's happening right now is actual science. That's my take on it.
Absolutely. And we're empowering people to think, to understand, to know everything they do. I mean, if we're, and I think from our point of view, and again, we are advocating even for our patients to think on their own, right? To just have that transparency on multiple different levels, right? Like, read the ingredients of anything you're putting in your body, right? Like I think that's just so important, because we can get into this, this automated lifestyle, and it's just like, look at what all can happen when we do that. And so I just think it's not a bad thing. We're not sitting here saying, like, do what you want at the end of the day. If you want to eat the box of cereal with the dye in it, fine, go for it, right? Yeah. But at least know what's in there.
Or if you want the multi-dose vaccine and if thimerosal in there, you can have it.
Fine. But I just to say that it's causing, scaring or fear. No, it's absolutely not. It's empowering and challenging people to think, to look, to understand before they make a decision, which is honestly, it's a beautiful thing.
What are you thinking, Andrew?
To me, people are going to make the choices that they want to make. And I think that that's the amazing thing about the United States, is that you have free choice, you have free will, you should have agency over yourself. But to be able to make those decisions, I think the people in charge should be transparent. And so what you said, bringing things to light. And I think if anything, it would only serve people to have that. They'll feel more confident in making choices if they felt like the people who were leading them wanted what was best for them and would and could and felt like they could be transparent. So I don't see how that could hurt you in any sort of way. And I think that anybody who rebels against that wants control more than they care about, being a good leader. And wanting and enabling yourself to hold power is not good leadership. And so for me, I think what we're seeing is our leadership empowering people. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think at the end of the day, people have the right to be able to do these things, and we have the right to make our voices heard. And if you want to have a safer, what you feel like is a safer form of a vaccine, and to have that choice, I think is a great thing.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to talk with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who's the NIH director, and Bobby Kennedy. We recorded the episode at the White House. So go back and listen to the episode. Something that I don't know if people caught, but in my conversation with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, head of NIH, we talked about the fact that there's no real data to show that healthy kids need to be taking the COVID vaccine. But he made a very clear point that I asked him, well, what's some exciting science you're excited about? He was talking about some off-label uses of certain vaccines that have been shown to improve health. So to say that they're anti-vax across the board is insane. Right. They want to have science without presupposition.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Right. That's leadership. That is saying, I care about the truth. I care about leading the people that I'm leading in truth and transparency, and not just doing a blanket control.
Or it's selling a product.
Yeah, this is how things have been done, so we're going to keep doing it that way. I think leadership invokes change. I think it invokes empowering those that you're leading. And I think that nothing about what they have done has ever been anti-vax. And in fact, the people that are saying that, I think, are the people that want to keep people oppressed.
Well, and I feel like the sort of shrouded, like, don't ask questions, it's not gonna fly today.
It doesn't translate.
And that increases vaccine hesitancy.
Yeah. Right.
Because you're like, don't ask questions. You're protesting too much. Like, the old guard protests way too much, and their agenda backfires on them, because you're just increasing hesitancy. You're increasing skepticism and cynicism, because why are you protesting too much?
Literally in Old English, here you saying that the protest is too much.
I've even had experiences, again, whether it's like taking my kids or in places where it's just like, I've just been told, you're going to die without this. Do you understand? Well, no, I don't understand. Tell me why. But I don't get the answer. And to me, like that, like you said, increases more hesitancy than anything. Like, okay, well, give me understanding then. But if you can't provide the understanding, don't label it like that. You know what I mean? Like, if you can educate me on that, I'd love to have the education. I'm not opposed to it. I want to hear. I want to understand.
Yeah, some
But-
vaccine researcher. Let's talk with them.
Yeah.
Let's understand it. But oftentimes it's not. They don't really know the data.
Correct.
They're just like, don't ask questions.
Right.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's the problem. That's not leadership.
Yeah.
That's control.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at some point in time when we're just making our voices heard. And I think, again, no one should be told what they have to do. There should be education around why and encouragement and transparency, and let people make their own choices.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So I want to just like hit on something really quick.
Okay.
You brought it up just slightly in like one of the last questions, but
Okay.
the people want to know, I hope this is okay. The people want to know, can you give an update? Because I know that you had a conversation with somebody, the medical medium. Can you give us an update?
Okay, so this video went kind of viral, I guess. I mean, I wasn't following it, but for like a day after this episode aired. All right, this is the 2 Ask Me Anythings ago?
Yeah,
It was
I think
2
it was a
Ask Me
couple.
Anythings ago. There we talked, someone submitted a question about the medical medium, and we get questions like this pretty frequently. People submit them an email, hello@drrollcole.com, and then friends within the industry or people that know me will like text me or message me and like ask questions that way too. So we've gotten 2 different ways that there was increased fear and anxiety from people who got blood tests when they saw the medical medium talk about the fact that you're going to be making your body more susceptible for chronic disease because it's basically akin to bloodletting, and you're weakening your immune system, and the life is in the blood. And we answered the question to the best of our ability of knowing the nuance and context of what people were saying, right? I tried to provide a balanced perspective on it with my perspective. I think
We did some research. It wasn't fully blind.
Yeah, we looked at what was available out there, and we looked at what I would say that at least the clips, the clickbait viral videos that he would be talking about. Don't get blood tests. They're drawing too much blood. You're going to hurt yourself. It did seem pretty clear that why I could understand why people would be afraid of getting blood tests. If
Yes.
you're a layperson and you're like, I thought my doctor's telling me to get blood tests, and now I'm hurting myself because I'm weakening my immune system because the doctors
You
are
even had someone
basically
personally
vampires.
reach out to you that
Yeah.
you're friends with
Yeah.
that was very scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a former telehealth patient.
Yes, 100%.
She was a former telehealth patient. She said, what do you think on this? Like, I'm having anxiety about getting blood tests now. Like, what do you do? So it's not a new, like I said on that Ask Me Anything, this isn't a new question. It's actually been going on for a few years.
Yeah.
But he was on some recent podcast that it kind of resurfaced that content because he talked
Yeah.
about it again. Okay, so a day after that aired, I get a text from a friend of mine, and she said, Anthony wants to talk to you. Can I connect you to? Because like I said, I didn't know him. Like, we had mutual friends, whatever. So I call him up, and we had a good conversation. My point was to him was we're all on the larger team of wanting to get people healthy, right? We can have different perspectives. We can have
Sure.
diversity of thought. We have different paths or different people. Like we talked about vegan and Mediterranean, keto, carnivore, all that stuff.
Right.
I don't want to be inflammatory unnecessarily, or I don't want to be ever intentionally inflammatory
No.
against people. And people should have the choice to make whatever decision they want. But I felt like those comments were really vilifying people within functional medicine. That's how I received it, is that we draw too much blood, we're hurting people. And certainly within conventional medicine, that could have been the indictment as well. He was very nice on the phone. And I want to kind of set a few things that he said that clarifying points for people that do follow him and do listen to him, is that he is fully on board with functional medicine. He does take a precautious approach to blood tests, but he's not against them. And he clarified it with me on the phone. I understand it. I've been on lots of podcasts. He'd been on lots of podcasts. Sometimes, certainly with clips, the full context can be lost because you're having a full conversation. And even the full conversation, context can be lost because you get whipped up in the conversation and you're not clarifying things.
Yeah.
I want to give people the benefit of the doubt because I would want the same done for me. And take a man for his word when he explains the context of where he's coming from. We're going to have different opinions, I guess, on the semantics, but I think overall he's supportive of functional medicine. One of you actually said getting blood done X amount of months and appropriate to someone's health history. He said he agreed with, I think it was one of you that said it. He's like, I agree with them totally. So there really wasn't any difference to it. And he also, so he made a few points, but basically he was saying it was a good conversation. And the other thing that
he doesn't charge.
The other thing was that I don't know how much he sees clients or not sees clients, but I made a reference of he's only one man. He can charge whatever he wants because I had people tell me, and maybe this is at one point and not true anymore, that it was X amount of money for it. And I said, well, he's one man. So many hours in the day. He can charge. It wasn't a negative comment. It was just, he can charge whatever he wants. But people that don't have access to him was my point. People that don't have access to them, what are they supposed to do when they're like, don't get blood tests is how they're receiving it, eat this way, and if they have a health issue, what are they supposed to do? And that's where he did clarify on the phone, still see a doctor. Blood tests are necessary. So I think that was important. I appreciated him reaching out. I really do. I think it was the right thing to do. I don't want there to be any bad blood, bad pun at this point between us, but I don't want there to be any bad blood. Certainly not with anybody. Yeah. I just am not that guy. I'm not going to be creating wars with people over food or wellness or any of this stuff. That's stressful to the listener oftentimes.
Yeah.
But I do think that having people fear blood tests, which we know can be really life-saving and informative and empowering, that's where I was coming from, is like, I told him, I said, Anthony, the people that follow you, what you're intending is being lost because they're afraid. And so maybe he will in the future be more clear with the context of it and not make broad sweeping statements, which we all can do sometimes.
Yep.
So I have grace on that. And there's, moving forward, but that's the T.
We love it. We're here for it.
That's the T on the blood.
The T
that
on
there's
the
no
blood.
more bad blood.
There's no bad blood, only good blood.
All right, guys.
Healthy blood.
We're digressing.
It was a good pun. It was good timing.
I liked it. All right. Anybody,
That's it?
Anything else? Okay.
No, that's
all right. If you guys want to learn more about our telehealth clinic, lots of free resources, it's all at drwilcole.com. We'll see you next time.